I hardly ever make movies. But deciding what to make always comes from I have lots and lots of ideas. I mean, I will never make all of them. But I decide one selfish decision is what's going to help me grow. And then after that, every decision is about the audience. Strictly Ballroom, the story is kind of remarkable in that right on the eve of us shooting, the man who financed it died. Looked like the film wasn't going to happen. And his wife, Popsy, came and said, no, my husband really knows talent. I'm going to back it. And then when we showed the film, we had one distributor, one cinema. And the guy saw the rough cut of it, left and said, it's the worst film I've ever seen, and cancelled the one cinema we had. I'm up the coast cutting my long hair off going, oh, I guess the movie thing didn't work out. And I get a call from a guy who says, my name is Pierre Rission from the Cannes Film Festival. I just saw Ballroom dancing and I'd love to put it on at the 12 o'clock screening. You have to make a decision within a week. And I'm like going, I think I'm okay with not the week. Yes, I'm there. And we get the most amount of sales still in the history of Cannes. And this security guard grabbed me when the screening finished and there was a crowd pushing in on us. He said, Monsieur, from this day on, your life will never be the same again. And he wasn't wrong. Can you believe it was 30 years? And they were kids. I mean, and Leo was like 19 and Claire was, I think she was 17, 16. And we were in Mexico, can you imagine? And it was the wildest time and probably the most romantic shooting I've ever done. It was really hard work. I mean, I had long black curly hair, so it must have been a while ago. We're in Miami, working with Craig Pearce writing it, trying to solve how should Romeo first see Juliet. Went to a club called Le Dome. Might have had a couple of sherries, I don't know. And I go to the bathroom and I'm washing my hands and there's an aquarium, and I had a lot of aquariums when I was a kid. I look up and I could see a girl just like you through the aquarium. And they cleverly worked out a way that you could sort of see each other while you're washing your hands. And in that moment I went, that's it. Then I had to work out how do I get Leonardo into the bathroom, but the Queen Mab had something to do with that. And then shooting it was crazy because I'm not going to destroy it all for anyone, but it wasn't just like they could hang around together because Claire was a minor, so we only had her on set so short. But that one shot actually where we tracked from her to him and they see each other through the tank, it wasn't an accident, but it was kind of an accident. We couldn't believe the reflections we were getting. And that moment was just one of those moments of magic. You plan it, but you don't expect it to be something that's in Hollywood reels and things like that. We needed an end credits song. And so this band that's only just started out called Radiohead, I keep ringing this guy called Tom. He says, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I brief him about what we need and we talk about it. And we're mixing the movie. Just as we're about to close out the mix, a dad arrives and says, oh, so sorry, Baz, I hope it's not too late. It's called Exit Song for a Movie. Years later, Johnny Greenwood actually ends up using my house in Sydney to write a ballet, and Nigel Godrich told me the story. Tom went down to start writing. He said, I've got to write that song for Romeo and Juliet, writes it. Johnny comes down. And that was the beginnings of OK Computer, which I think is one of the great albums of all time. I didn't really get the sense that she was nervous about singing. She just applied herself fearlessly like she does to everything. She says, I made her audition 3 times, which is not true. You know, we are deep friends. But I put everyone through their paces because I go, well, it's not an audition. Let's find out what we can find out together. Should we do this? Most of the music recorded in my house in Sydney. We had these mobile rigs, big rehearsals in the ballroom I have in an old house down there, yeah. I originally thought for Marmalade, what if we got a great singer from each country? And then working with my music team, so well, look, we probably can't do that, but what about one rap, one? And at the time, the 2 big female vocalists were Britney and Christina. And we got Christina because she really had the pipes. I mean, all respect to Britney. And there was a young singer called Pink. And I remember sitting with little Kim briefing on the rap. But Ron Fair and Missy Elliott produced. And honestly, Jimmy Iovine was backing me all the way. He was the head of the label. He's like, this Baz guy's just going to make this crazy music. I'm backing it. And it wasn't cheap, but Missy came up with the beats and she was great to work with, and boom, it just went all summer long. 2 summers, actually. I don't make that many movies. And when I make them, I want them to have a life beyond being de rigueur, hip for the moment or following the rules of the moment. I do that because I do want them to move through time and geography. It's just the way I tell story. They may be set in a period, but as Kurosawa would say, it's an immaculate reality. It's a world unto themselves. They do open, but then they always have a second life and a third life, and they go on and they grow. Moulin Rouge has like 5 versions around the world. Australia was unique again. We had so many problems and it was so ambitious. But then I had Hugh and Nicole. I think none of us would give up the experience because, whoa, what experiences. Learning about my own country, surviving it. Like we had equine flu. It rained in the desert for the first time in 110 years when I'm trying to shoot. I wanted a kind of David Lean adventure and I certainly got one. I think a musical historical journey has happened through all the movies. With Gatsby, I'm dealing with the music of the Jazz Age, which is really black street music that everyone was going like, this is just a fad. And Fitzgerald puts it into the book. I knew Beyonce, but Jay-Z and I get together and go, well, this would be a great partnership. And we became terrific collaborators and friends. And it was like, well, if that's jazz, let's make that hip hop because that's street music. But then when I did the Get Down, that's the 70s, disco, the birth of hip hop. And the Elvis part of it is this kind of weaving piece because it starts in the 50s and you see him as the rebel, and then the 60s, the family entertainer, and then the 70s. And in fact, the biggest year in record history was 77, the year Elvis dies because of disco. Elvis does a song called Way Down, which is him having a go at a disco song. It's posthumously released. And meanwhile, these kids over in the Bronx putting 2 records together. Flash is making the sample. And then there's this other thing called punk. It all happens at once. I started on the Elvis biopic with love, but with a desire to find out the truth. A lot of people came to me about doing musical biopics, but I always thought, well, the thing about, say, Amadeus, which is my favorite films, it's more about jealousy. And great biopics, I think, are about something bigger than the subject. And I always thought Elvis is the perfect subject to explore America in the 50s, the rebel, the teenager, like he terrified parents. Great respect to tribute artists, but tribute artists make tribute, whereas acting is about finding the human being, and Elvis, such a jumble of imperfections wrapped up in the perfect body and the perfect voice. Tapping into that for Austin. Austin was so dedicated to it. Early on, he was like, I don't want to do too much. You do Elvis, and they start doing the lip thing, And he really avoided doing those tropey things because he just wanted to keep focused on the soul of the man, Well, I had an office in Graceland 18 months after that we found this footage. And it was meant to be mythical. And literally Raiders of the Lost Ark style, we kick in the door and there's 61 reels, never before seen. And it was rotting, like it smelled like vinegar. And it was literally in salt mines. So we rescued it, and the question was what to do with it. We also found this audio of Elvis just talking about his life. You never hear that. So we made one big decision. Most things about Elvis have other people talking about him. What if we get out of the way? What if he just tells his story and sings to you like in a kind of dream? At some point, Elvis sort of takes control of his career and says, hell with that, I want to get back to being me, come back special. And then this thing, the 1970 concert film, which he thinks he's only going to do like once. And as you see in the film, he says, then I'm going to go to England and Japan and la, la, la. He never goes. And he goes round and round and round until he becomes kind of the Elvis that becomes the Halloween costume. He says this lovely line, Elvis. It's very hard to live up to an image. The image is one thing, but the man is another, right? Think in this film, audiences will get closer to the man than ever before. Of course, people go for, Suspicious Minds and Burning Love and, some of the classic older ones, But in this film, I think when you see him through Polk Salad Annie, which is not that well known, but when you see him, the way he puts it together and the way he improvises, you see, unlike any other artist, they never knew what he was going to do. He connects with them and he just uses his whole body to conduct. So, that's what he's always doing. And they just got to watch him, and that keeps it so alive on stage. They never know where it's going to go. The Polk Salad Annie sequence in this shows you from rehearsal to performance the organic nature of who he was as a performer. And I think that's a revelation. I try not to be self-conscious about the work I do. I've just got to the point in my life where even I go, isn't it funny? No matter what stories I go to tell, Christian is a young artist, meets an impossible love, and then is changed by the scars. Romeo and Juliet is champagne love, the intoxication of that love and the fighting families. And again, it's impossible. The world is harsh and it can be dark. And I went through quite a journey myself growing up. So I like to try and put affirmative, positive beauty out there, amplifying and leaving those kind of qualities behind. That makes me feel useful. And right now we could use a bit of that, I think.